Okay. So something that I've noticed, this is very recent, that has been like pretty eye-opening and shifting, but there's some things about it that I kind of just want to talk to you about. So when I have like something come up, like let's say a thought or a feeling, that thought or feeling that would come up used to be like, I guess it just appeared more real, like it actually had reality to it. And now what I've noticed is that, like, to put it into perspective, I'll have a thought like, I want to text my girlfriend, or I will, want this, want that, or I feel anxiety, even that one. I kind of take a step back and I will just ask myself, where is that? Where is I want to do this? Where is I have anxiety? Where is that I feel anxiety? Where is the evidence of it? And then what I'm left with is like, well, it's in the thought itself. There's no talk of anxiety or talk of, you know, wanting to text my girlfriend other than in the thought that arises, I want to text my girlfriend or I feel anxiety. So then the question becomes, okay, where is the anxiety in I feel anxiety? And it's interesting. It all breaks down. You can't actually see it. You can't see anything that gives any evidence of actual anxiety. And so what you're left with is like, it's just a it's just a concept. It's just something that over and over and over again, I think as a habit, I've
Yeah.
learned or have learned to believe is true or real. But there's really nothing true or real about that. And so what's interesting though is that the appearance of it continues. Hey, how's it going, Carl? The
Hello.
hi. The appearance of anxiety or the appearance of I want to do this will show up, and that's really all it is. There's just appearances. Um, but if there was any kind of difficulty, I'd have to say it's weird. Like, I know that there's no anxiety. I know that there's no fear. I know that there's no like I want to do this or that. Yet the experience or the appearance of the experience still shows up. And I was curious kind of like what you guys might have to say to that. How have you dealt with that? How does that deepen? Is it just the same practice of just noticing, well, hey, there's no fear there. There's no anxiety there.
Yeah, I would say that's like a good first step. But then so once you realize that like the thought of the thought that's like a worrisome thought that creates a feeling of anxiety is just a thought and just a feeling, which are appearances. They become less real, right? In that
Right.
moment of clear seeing.
Of looking at them.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so after you see that, then you could realize that thoughts are just thoughts and feelings are just feelings, and then play around with having wholesome thoughts and wholesome feelings. So
Right.
once you see the 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 scope of these phenomena, that's just a tiny aspect of our experience, then you could realize how malleable they really are. So if you just see they're just thoughts and just feelings, perfect. Now you've developed a natural detachment to them
Hmm.
out of the insight. But the thoughts and the feelings are operating based off a habitual tendency mechanism.
Hmm.
So they're going to keep happening unless you start changing them. But but you wouldn't be able to just change them unless you first see them for what they are, like you did. So I would say play around with them, like because there's such a like such a fickle wispy thing that's changes on the dime, constantly changing.
Mhm.
Like all your thoughts and all your feelings. Um one thing could happen. Let's say someone just told you you won $10 million right now. You just won $10 million. Instantly, every thought and every feeling you have changes dramatically into something else.
Mhm.
But why? Because someone told you one thing, like nothing changed. Nothing in your situation. You didn't get the physical ramifications of that money. You just got the news.
So I have
So
a funny story about that actually. When I think I was like 10, I was sitting in my bedroom and I started thinking like, if there was a really cool car in my driveway right now and I couldn't see it, and someone was like, "You can have a Ferrari," I noticed that I would have gotten excited by that, but in the moment I couldn't actually see anything, because I'm just sitting in my room. So I started thinking, well, what's really the difference between that car being out there right now and me owning it and not being able to see it versus, there's something in there about how we almost get like hooked by the thinking of it.
right.
Is
So
that like
this is how
Schrodinger's Ferrari?
I don't know if I was thinking Ferrari, but I was thinking just like insert nice car.
I both have a Ferrari and don't have a Ferrari.
Yeah. But I realized that if you own the Ferrari but you couldn't see it or enjoy it right there in that experience, it's really not even that different than not owning it. And then why would you be excited if someone gave it to you at that moment, but you didn't have access to it? Even though I think a lot of people would still get the initial kind of surge of excitement.
I
Right,
would
so
I would be
further.
excited until I realized I couldn't afford the insurance.
Well, guys, piggybacking off what you said, Scott, the thing is that so I played around with like the, being wholesome and basically changing, right? Changing phenomena, changing whatever things are coming up uh to be more wholesome, to feel good, things like that. But I would say like from that practice, what I began to notice was this, that these thoughts and feelings are empty way beyond any aspect I've ever considered. Um, and so in seeing that, there's kind of this, it's not that it is pointless to change thoughts or feelings into negative thoughts or feelings into more wholesome thoughts or feelings, but that it's just unnecessary because you see the structure or the empty foundation on which these things are built, and like it's like there's no ground to them. So in seeing that there's no ground to them, then what? Because it almost seems it's just I mean, yeah, it's good to feel good, right? But I think it was only as important to me to feel good as much as I felt like there was validity and reality to the opposite, to those negative feelings or thoughts. But in seeing that both wholesome thoughts and feelings and negative thoughts and feelings don't really actually exist, but
so you have
inside
to
of a momentary appearance, the whole thing kind of breaks down.
so anytime we do a practice, right, you have to ask yourself, what is the point of this practice? And I can answer you that question. The point is happiness.
Right.
So the point is not seeing the emptiness of phenomena and then continuing to feel bad. That's not the
No.
point. So
Yeah.
if you see the emptiness of phenomena and you're happy, perfect. What's the problem, right? If you're happy with unwholesome thoughts continuing to arise and unwholesome feelings continuing to arise, then you can't really say that these are unwholesome because you're happy. Happiness is wholesome.
Hmm.
So honest with yourself in your heart of hearts, is this insight or is this realization happiness? Is it dukkha-nirodha or is it dukkha? Because
Yeah.
because that's going to be the result of your practice, whatever practice you do.
Yeah, exactly. That the goal that sometimes the Buddha would talk about enlightenment being extreme happiness, permanent happiness, or whatever, but also sometimes he would talk about it just being freedom from dukkha, no longer suffering. So what you're saying, Alex, is those thoughts will arise and that the effort is quick in the sense of throwing them out and no longer getting caught by them like you would before, right? But that doesn't mean that's a permanent thing, that there's still the watching, there still has to be the effort, there's still the sati of making sure that there is not that you remember those thoughts are empty, because that thought could arise and then you could go on and you fall down its rabbit hole, and then it would be the mind would be less quick in seeing that it's empty, that it might have some weight to it. So continuing to catch and continuing to practice and continuing to repeat that, so their still thought is empty, that they're not important.
Well, the thing is also is that it's seen that there's nothing to actually throw out.
Exactly.
That's kind of like my point here.
That's a wholesome thought.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Like you're thinking wholesome thoughts, and the wholesome thoughts correlate with wholesome feelings. But yes, Alex, you can do emptiness all the way. Emptiness is a sufficient realization. So if you see emptiness, then what emptiness is like synonymous with freedom, openness, delocalization, disidentification. Happiness is not clinging, not averting to anything. Emptiness, it's impossible for emptiness to cling on to anything or resist anything because it's inherently empty of those qualities.
It's just interesting because for like months I practiced like getting into wholesome states and into feeling good, right? Into like making my mind like an ally, like being my best friend. And now it's like there's no good or bad. There's no good in the good. There's no bad in the bad. Like none of these things actually exist. And so it's like
Yeah, I might
what's the
add,
point of trying to feel good?
but that's the thing is like you have been, developing these skills, you've been cultivating it, and now you're really you're experiencing a lot of the fruit, right? And being able to see past, the pleasure and the pain, and just to be able to enjoy the rain,
Empty fruit? Is it empty fruit?
Yeah, but I think I rather enjoy the Heart Sutra, and I think it's a very helpful pointer that emptiness is form and form is emptiness, So that can be very helpful because I think sometimes with these practices we can get a little bit completely like disidentified or whatever. So this can actually bring us back even more to like wholeness, right? Not like just in general, like one of the like it can help from one becoming aversive to the world, right? Is to recognize we can come back here, be very grounding with the body, so yeah, having that foundation there so we can be sturdy, we can still be sturdy. I mean, there is the anicca, there's this constant dance, right? Of this change, but also this sturdiness in it. We can handle this wind. We can handle how they blow. That's just it. We can handle them. We can enjoy this dance, this marvelous dance, this marvelous play. Yeah, it's quite wonderful.
Thanks, TJ.
So congratulations, Alex. And congratulations to like all of you. I mean, that is just. I mean, the fact that. You're all working on it. It's so wonderful. It's so great, and that we're all working on this. It's just such a marvelous thing. So yeah,
it is.
I just like Scott's new slogan, emptiness all the way.
Emptiness. That is a good one. I love that.
That's a great
Scott.
slogan.
Yeah. Emptiness all the way.
Well, you can't go halfway because if you go halfway, you're going to be worse off from when you started. That's what the dark night of the soul is called.
Oh,
is when you realize partially emptiness,
Yeah.
And then you get scared of emptiness, and now you're having an existential crisis. Instead of realizing emptiness of self completely, and then emptiness of even emptiness, and emptiness of thinking about emptiness, and emptiness of practicing emptiness, and emptiness of everything so completely that you're just back to being an ordinary person, and you're just doing, you're just complete. That's what Dhammarato told me. The Buddha often referred to himself as the Tathāgatha, and the correct translation of that is "thus come one." So it means you completely come into the moment, completely, and just there's nothing else. There's nothing else in the moment itself as it's happening, and it's completely empty of any superimposed conceptual layers and
yeah, this is it, baby.
Like and it's so ordinary. It's like not even a special thing anymore. It's just it's just like complete freedom from any kind of over complications of just life as it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's emptiness. But then you may realize you may have some experience of emptiness, like a real experience of it, and then now you afterwards you construct a whole framework about emptiness, which is not emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Emptiness has no names, and it has no forms. That's why people that's why spiritual traditions often emphasize silence and practicing silence, because silence is not a teaching. Silence is not like any sort of practice or method either.
Mm-hmm.
But not like silence as in physical silence, like absence of sound, but silence as in metaphysical silence, as in absence of perceptions. And absence of any perceptions at all is the classical experience people generally call enlightenment, which is the emptiness of all name and form, and all karmas, all locations, all self, all knowledge of existing as a separate person or a separate soul, whatever you want to call it. And then that's the undeniable truth of reality. And then there's no problems, everything, what there's nothing to do and nowhere to go, because everything that is done and everywhere you go is ultimately the same and comes from the same place, and there's no escaping it, and that's emptiness.
Pretty cool.
Mo, how is your practice?
It's going great. Yeah. I followed Dhammarato. I never emailed or I never Skyped with him, but I followed him years ago. And then I just started rewatching some of his videos a couple weeks ago, and just been, kind of leaning the practice more in the direction of just gladdening the mind, the getting some more wholesome thoughts in there, and it's been great. I've enjoyed it a lot. Definitely seemed, that and the emphasis of the Sangha definitely seems like something that's missing from a lot of the Western-y Dharma stuff. This intense like meditation Olympics, which I'm sure many of us have been into. And I love meditating. I've done tons of it, but it definitely seems like, not having the Sangha element and just, some of the other things that he talks about it just seems so obvious once you start paying attention to it. Like it's, just the fact that you guys seem to get together, or I don't know if everyone comes to all the Sangha meetings, but there's like a few a week, and people are communicating with Dhammarato, on top of that. I mean, that makes total sense to me, because this idea of like meeting with a teacher like once a week or like once a month is not enough for the like socialness of the human brain to like really come online. And just from hearing him talk about that, I don't think I was very sensitive to that, 3 or 4 years ago. And now I'm much more, at least open to the benefits of it. It seems, much more self-evident.
Good to have you here.
So,
there's also a Discord where people sometimes join the voice chat, and that's more of an impromptu thing. But there are 3 a week that are in the YouTube description.
Very cool.
Where we meet on Skype.
Yeah.
It seems like the average meditator, the average way of approaching it is usually they pick up a book, they look in that book alone. The way of reading a book is always you're using your old experiences to try and understand it. But what's communicating here through like a medium of video or voice call, that there's so much more information that's being communicated compared to in a book, where a book you're using your past experiences, and often those are very competition related with school. How do I get the best at this? We want to skip to the end of the book to make sure we're doing the best practices. And then the student will go on Reddit and he'll compare his experiences with other students who are like, how good am I at this? Oh, I'm better than this guy. But what really needs to be done is very simple. That it's not about skipping to the end of the book. That what can be said, what is the practice, is very simple. It could be said in 3 words, and dukkha-nirodha, 4 words. Don't worry, be happy. So we don't need a whole book. All we need is that simple line, that simple practice repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah,
I find
also need. Go ahead, Rick.
I just find like the whole urge of like meditation competition is so hilarious and absurd. It's like, I will out peaceful you.
Hey,
I will. It's just ridiculous. It's just, you can't even conceptualize where the competition would even lie, and yet people still somehow try and find a rank and try and upgrade themselves and things. It's like, oh my goodness, really? This is the one activity it's nearly impossible to even think about. It's yet still people push against that wall, and I just find it hysterical.
I would say, Rick, like it's like conceit is one heck of a little stinker, in terms of like I thinking about them in terms of like the Sankara can be really helpful as well, in terms of, hey, nothing personal, kid. This is just some like conditionings going on. Hey, cool, you can spot them, and by spotting them, we're starting to like unravel this. So if the thought of conceit comes up, again, nothing personal, kid. This is just part of the, hey, cool, we spotted it, nice, right? And then we can kind of keep on rolling along, but that's sort of the kind of cool thing with that. But I see what you're saying. It's hilarious though, that whole notion.
That's absurd. Why it's just absurd to think that would be an avenue under which to, like the meditation Olympics. They've got like judges wandering around, seeing who twitched and who jerked. Who could remain the stillest the longest, and think. I mean, of course, that's all fake, but think. Is that what some people conceive of when they're thinking about this leveling? I don't know. It's funny.
Well, I wonder if, because it seems like the Western mind kind of views you know, if you view the awakening as some kind of skill set, it's like, well, I gotta just like do so much practice, and this will somehow like flip things over. But in my experience, like over the past 10 years, most of the biggest insights happen through conversations with people, not through sitting on the cushion for hours and hours, even though that's been useful. But yeah, I studied Zen for a long time, and virtually everything that's happened has happened through a conversation. It's through someone kind of poking at something. And I noticed that with Dhammarato, like especially because I've mostly watched videos of him and Alex talking. I thought it'd be nice, like let's just watch one stream of conversations and see how someone kind of is developing. So, but he has that kind of flavor, that Zen flavor of that, like, you know, at some point he's just kidding around and fucking around with people. And like, there was this video, I think, Alex, I think you just lost your shit and you wanted like some specific technical, you're like, I want the technical details of meditation instruction. And he wouldn't give you like anything else in that conversation. And then the funniest thing though, the very next video, like from what I saw, the start of the conversation, he was like super technical detail oriented. So it was like when you wanted it, he was just like, no. And then it was like the next video in the series, he was like so specific about stuff. And that's the kind of shit that I remember happening to me when I would talk to the Zen master in Vancouver here. But yeah, it's quite a mind trip actually. It's fun though.
Alex, you're like you have your own sub channel on the Dhamma News channel. You're your own sub channel.
Man, I got so frustrated with him so many times. I was just like, will you just listen to me?
There was one video where you really kind of lost it. I watched that one this morning. I was actually like eating popcorn, like I was watching.
Wow! Enjoy the show, everybody.
This is crazy. It's really insane, like how it just unfolds.
Yeah.
And you know, I appreciate you like being open to it being recorded because I think it's useful for people to watch. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Props for that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, one thing I wonder is like a lot of meditators will, you know, watch like tons of YouTube videos or, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm thinking of that more as like, you know, if someone doesn't have a Sangha, it almost makes sense that they would like have some kind of inclination to, you know, watch dialogues about stuff like this. But yeah, it's obviously not the same as having actual people to talk to you. You miss like, you know, the ability to share and hear feedback on your own comments. But,
It's
I mean,
two-way dialogue.
The only way this stuff really can be taught is in a live dialogue, because the teaching is not a methodology, really. It's the teaching is the spontaneous experience of it. And talks are spontaneous. You don't know what's going to come up. Like you don't know what you're going to talk about beforehand. There's no speech prepared. There's no formula of what to say. So like everything is completely the teacher teaches from the experience of it, which is why it's so effective.
Speak for yourself, Scott. Continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what you meant by that, but
that was my prepared speech.
Those are his cue cards.
That's my cue cards. Yeah. It's like that's correct, Scott. Please
that's
continue.
great.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be how you prepared it, even when you say it. But yeah, there is a path and there is a method and there is a science to it, which is why the Dhamma is so effective, because it can be repeated. But it works way better if a teacher is giving you the practice, because you can get it's the same way that you learn math. Like you watch the teacher do the math problem in real time, and then you can see their thinking and their step-by-step process. Like when Dhammarato is teaching you jhana, he's going through the jhana that he's talking about. So it can kind of bring you into that jhana. So you watch them do it, and then they tell you how to do it, and then you practice on your own with the examples, but you learned in real time with the teacher, like they walked you through it. And then once you practice on your own, you may have some answers, and then you can come check your answers with the teacher again. And they'll be like, oh no, you did this and this. Yeah, here's, you didn't think about this, or like, no, here's another way to think about it, or they'll start to like point out like where you're messing up. And then you go and practice again, and you bring your answers, and then if you have the right answer, they're going to tell you, yeah, you got the right answer. So this is how the interaction with the teacher works, in the same way, like eventually you become your own mathematician. You could start making your own theorems and your own things. What were you gonna say, DJ? Were you gonna say something?
Oh no, before I think I just brought up, because like how they're kind of like sometimes a little bit improvised, you know, almost like a jazz music or something, right? When people come up with Dhamma talks, like they kind of stick to a theme. Like that's a very cool thing. But because the Dhamma is so, you know, arising and all that stuff, it just all works together. So like one piece will link to this other piece, and it all just comes back to like this beautiful whole. So that's like what's so nice about like the Dhamma talks, is that, yeah. And again, Dhammarato is really just, you know, miraculous at being able to have that skill of just being able to just throw it out and come up with the whole talk like just like that. You know, he has experience, you know, and that's the nice thing, right? It's about, he does have the experience, you know, and that you can hear it for sure, you know. So yeah.
Buddhadasa and Dhammarato sometimes bring this up, use the word of the natural method versus the organized method. That the natural method is where the student is asking questions, and the teacher hears those questions, hears the way they ask them, and answers depending on how the question is asked, what the question was, and really getting to that student-specific problems. But the wider an audience you get, the less tailored, the less natural it gets, and the more organized it can be. So if you're teaching to a mass audience, you'd likely be using a curriculum because you can't consult every student to see where they're at. So that's one way of thinking it, is the natural method, where the teacher is working with the student and bringing up the point of friendship, where they're just two friends here chatting, compared to the organized method, where it's a teacher teaching a curriculum, and first you got to do A, then B, then C.
Yeah, so you think, yeah, Parker, that is like kind of one of the nice benefits of, yeah, doing it in this sort of approach, where it's very much questions and, you know, answer kind of like, and that can spawn a lot of creativity as well, right? In terms of the like asking a question, you know, that can bring up a whole talk within its, you know, self. So it's a wonderful gift. I think that's something to also, yeah, remember. But yeah, what do you think about that?
One thing that comes to mind is when students are listening to a YouTube video compared to talking one-to-one, is sometimes there'll be a doubt that comes to mind, or a specific wording that they remember that doesn't match with the teacher's wording. And they'll continue to dwell on that doubt, continue to dwell on that wording, instead of dropping it, like that would be correct practice, because that doubt is a hindrance. They're feeling bad because of it. Another way of thinking about the talks is sort of a hypnotic induction, that the teacher's job is to get the student into first jhana and throw out any hindrances for them, right? That they have these hindrances, they have these questions that are making them feel bad, making them feel stressed, they have these doubts. And the teacher's job is to throw out those doubts and get them to a very satisfied state, and then teach them how to do it themselves. And the
like
videos are less skilled at doing that.
So I haven't talked to Dhammarato about this, but from what I've seen so far, the way he describes, you know, being first jhana is a lot different than some of the other stuff you read. But I'm sorry, I can't see everyone's names. I haven't learned everyone's names yet. But you just mentioned, like, you know, the student and the teacher basically getting into a flow state or like a jhana while they're having a conversation. And to me, that makes total sense to describe it like that, rather than thinking like first jhana has to be this very specific, like, 8-hour like explosion experience or something like that, which is often marketed as, instead of just being like a state of mind that's very joyful and pleasureful and free of hindrances.
Yeah, there's like five jhana factors, and I'm not one of them scholars, so I don't really know what they are. But but like the important part is that first jhana is just when you're empty of any hindrances. The mind is empty. There's still thinking going on.
Yep.
But the thinking is completely empty of any craving or aversion. Otherwise known as just having a good time, enjoying yourself, right? Like there's like first jhana is not a magical experience. It's something that everyone has been in at one time or another. Have you ever just been like, I don't know, playing video games with a group of friends, or like just hanging out with your buddies, and you're just completely satisfied in that moment? Like there's nothing else that like you don't want to be anywhere else. You're not wanting anything. You just feel completely fulfilled.
Yeah.
That's first jhana. Like you don't have to be like in a cave, like with your eyes shut and like completely completely escaped from the world. Like that that's not necessarily how it works. Again, like I would say first jhana could be definitely on your own with your eyes closed while meditating, but not necessarily. I would say second jhana, like once you get into the later jhanas, like then it starts to be more like they're still possible to be done in the midst of other people, but once the discursive thinking goes away, then it's harder to like hold a conversation per se. so like then like it's more like you might imagine like you don't necessarily have to be sitting down meditating, but you're definitely not going to be having any discursive thought from second jhana onwards. And then again, like these other jhanas, like you can slip in and out of them from first jhana. So you can just be in first jhana, slip into second, third, and even fourth, and then go back to first jhana, where it's not like a graduation where you spend a certain amount of time in first, and then you get to second, spend a certain amount of time in second, and get to third and spend a certain amount of time there, and then graduate to the next one. You can go straight into, you can be in first jhana, go straight into fourth, or be in first jhana, go straight into third, or straight into second, and only for a moment, and then come back into first. So the important part is that you're empty of hindrances, aka dukkha. So then all the jhanas are your playground. Like you can access anyone, but they're not like one is better than the other. They're just different, like different levels and different skills of it, different levels of being satisfied. But what you really want is the satisfaction. It doesn't really, the jhanas are just like a byproduct of being satisfied. And then and each jhana, like each jhana and progression of jhana is a further like a cessation of something. So going into first jhana is the cessation of hindrances. Going into second jhana is the cessation of the thinking and examining thoughts.
So that would be the first, there's no thought anymore in the first jhana. Or no verbal. It's just satisfaction when you go into the second, right? Maybe we're talking about the same thing, just using different.
No, yeah, that's what I said. I said going to the first jhana is
exactly,
the cessation of hindrances.
I just misunderstood.
Going into the second jhana is the cessation of the thinking and examining thought. I forgot what the Pali word for it is. The something.
Vitaka, Vikara, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then so the second jhana is just the piti and sukha, whereas first jhana is you're going to be in a wholesome state of mind, thinking wholesome thoughts, examining maybe neutral thoughts, like just looking at what's going on, like looking at the breath, like experiencing the body in its totality, experiencing the moment, the presence of this moment, but you're still thinking about it, just without any sort of craving or aversion. And then just like being in that wholesome state produces good feelings and joy, which is piti and sukha. And then the cessation of the thinking and the piti and sukha build and become so prominent in your direct experience that the thinking and examining thought passes away, or there's a cessation of that. And then that second jhana is when you're just experiencing joy and bliss of the body, or relaxation of the body. So joy and relaxation. And then third jhana is the cessation of the joy. So then now there's just the bliss and relaxation of the body is third jhana. So there's the uplifted joy that can be very energizing, very exhilarating. At the same time, the body is relaxed. It can actually be like an ecstasy experience in second jhana. Like the mind is so overwhelmed by how good you're feeling that you're just feeling good. And then the cessation of the uplifted joy goes into just the bliss and just the good feeling and just the relaxation of the body. It's like an even more profound like stilling is third jhana. And then one step further is the cessation of even the feelings, even the bliss of the body. That goes away too. And then what you're left is just the pure serenity of the moment. This is fourth jhana. Just like stillness, silence. There's just that you're still experiencing a body. Otherwise, you'd be in the formless jhanas. But you're experiencing just like the breath in its complete intimacy of the moment. And you're experiencing, there's no feelings. Like there's not even pleasurable feelings. So all there is like peace and stillness. Things are happening, perceptions are happening, but there's no like, again, obviously there's no hindrances because you're in jhana, but even the feelings of feeling good has ceased. And that's just like a good way to think about it is we've all been looking off into the distance and like a really expansive view before. And that moment of just looking off into a beautiful broad view and just taking it all in, and it's just happening to you, and there's just this utter serenity, this utter at rest, this collectedness, there's a complete collectedness and a restfulness is fourth jhana. And then to go into the formless jhanas, you start playing with the borders of your experience. So you go into the experience of the body without it. There's like no feelings anymore. There's just sensations with no feelings around them, and you could start to see the emptiness of those sensations of the body and the borderlessness. And then you can start to go into the formless jhanas, or like many people find themselves experiencing formless jhanas maybe on a breakthrough psychedelic experience or something like that, but they don't know how they got there. Whereas if you like start to play around with this practice of jhana, like you can start to do that intentionally. But I feel like the formless jhanas are like the DLC, like that's like the expansion pack. The first four, like you only really need the first four, because the first four are like, the important part is that you're satisfied. Like you don't need to like become like a jhana like connoisseur, or like a jhana like expert.
Junkie?
Junkie, yeah.
Not necessarily a junkie, but like a virtuoso. Like you don't need to become a jhana virtuoso. You just need to like be satisfied.
This jhana has
yeah,
like
that we don't even
vintage.
need the four, but we just need the one factor that you were talking about earlier of satisfaction, of freedom from hindrances.
Right. That's the important part. And then that affects you. That changes your habits, and that changes how you're wired. The more time you spend being satisfied, you will start to viscerally change your experience, your default experience of reality, because you are feeling good and you are feeling satisfied, and there's no end to that. Like it just gets better and better. It like ages like fine wine, and then just remembering to come back to that, because you're going to come back out of the jhana, and you're going to cling to the jhana, and you're going to be like, ooh, this is good, this is what I want, and that wanting is a hindrance, and then now you're out of jhana. So it becomes you become like well acquainted with all the tricks of the mind, that you could call like Mara. Like once you start to develop some success in meditation, there's going to be distractions and hindrances that are like attacking you, because like it's like Mara trying to keep you in like the cycle of it, or like that's like the personification of it, of what these hindrances and distractions are. It's like a demon that just like, it recognizes that you're a good meditator, and it's going to like fight back even harder. So then you just practice, and you develop like a flexible, like you get your sea legs, like you start to be able to like balance and like play with these things. So you like been there, done that, and you're like, oh, there's a distraction, there's a hindrance, like not to pull on that thread, like not to go down that road. And then when you go down that road, you quickly wake up out of it as soon as you can and realize, oh, I was going down that road, and then come back into satisfaction.
What's up, Mark?
And then
Yeah, they're like boss fights, right?
Yeah,
You get
like
better,
boss fights.
you go up to a new level, and there's a boss fight up there. You get good at that.
Yeah, it's like Dragon Ball Z. So like the first, you transcended your limits and like transcended the hindrances, and you beat like the first villain. But then there's always going to be a bigger villain, and then what are you gonna do? You have to transcend your limits again, until like you become like the villains. It's not like Dragon Ball Z, because like in Dragon Ball Z, there's always going to be that's how they keep the story going. There's always going to be another higher villain. But actually, jhana is easier the more you do it. Because you start to like Alex says, even the distractions and even the hindrances start to become like less of a big thing or less of a big deal, because you see how easily they can be changed and go away. So like you're less likely to resist them, so you can remove them or like let go of them quicker, because like clinging and like craving and aversion is strengthened because we feed into it and we focus on it. But like when you see like it's just a tiny aspect of your experience that can be removed, and you start to open up the awareness to everything that's going on in this moment, rather than focusing in on an unwholesome thought or focusing in on an unwholesome feeling. You open up to the moment, and you see the real scale of your inner thoughts and feelings, which is just tiny wispy things. And then they can evaporate instantly, because like there's this much bigger experience. The totality of your experience is panoramic. It's like it's integrated. It's like it's out and about. It's like above and around. And when you spend time being above and around, that's when you're getting into a wholesome state, because you're not projecting into the past or the future. You're experiencing reality happening right now.
Neither here nor there.
Right.
Yeah, wonderfully said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes I see those little thoughts as bubbles. They just pop, right? And new ones come up and they just pop. They pop. There's no substance to them at all. They're just some soap and water.
Like sea foam.
And most of it's empty, all the way.
Right.
All the way.
Yeah, it's empty as long as you can remember it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, unless you start filling it with things, attaching importance to it, then it becomes the solid thing you have to like really use
and the
effort to get
importance
out. Yeah.
and the reality that Alex was talking about is these are my thoughts. That there is a thinker here thinking these thoughts, and these are mine. But really, they're just thoughts. They arise and pass away. That they're real, but they're not mine. They're Buddhadasa would use the word void. That they're void of any self. And when we can see that there is no self there. Self is you could say it's the bucket for suffering. This self, all suffering happens because we create a self. And there's no more problems. That all the problems in the world have to do with I, me, or mine. And if we can let go of that, there are no more problems. That we're above pain and pleasure or happiness and dissatisfaction. We're just doing our duty to the Dhamma. We're just living by the law of nature, the way things are, that we finally see how they are now. It's not something special or grandiose or getting to a certain level. It's just we were ignorant, and now we're becoming not ignorant. We're becoming not foolish anymore. That we didn't know how the mind worked before, and now we know how the mind works. So we live in a way that is in accordance with that. That's wise with that. That's not wanting things we don't have, because that makes us suffer.
There's like the cool thing about no self is that there's no self that becomes wise, or there's no self that only a self is ignorant. So like again, like most people experience negative emotions because of some sort of self-referential, like some guilt or like some shame, or like or just it, like all, yeah, like Parker said, all negative emotions are centered around yourself as like in a person.
You could say the absolute core of
certain,
it is the self-preservation instinct of I don't want to die, and all of it
like
relating to that is fear.
Yeah, like I need to be accepted by others in order to survive. Like that is like the human biological mechanism of it, and it's a natural mechanism. But like realizing that it's a mechanism, it's like a product of biological drives. Again, just seeing that, like seeing the truth of that, is how you detach yourself from it. Because anxiety is just like a fight or flight response. And then the fight or flight response is produced by conceived dangers. Like either something bad happened to you, or you project that something will bad happen to you. And then thinking about something bad that happened to you in the past will create the stimulus for the fight or flight response. Or imagining that something bad will happen in the future creates the same response, where these dangers don't actually exist in the reality of the moment. Like the reality of the moment is you're just sitting here in this room breathing, and there's like absolutely zero danger. Like there's no reason to like feel worried or like scared about anything. So like you're coming into the just the fact of the moment is that there's nothing to worry about, and there's like nothing here that to do, and there's no problems there. Like there's never a problem in the moment. It's only through the mental faculty that it's used to solve practical problems that becomes an overactive, becomes a dictator of your life, like starts to dictate how you feel, rather than being a servant used to solve practical issues. It creates existential issues, and so being able to put on the identity of personhood and separate individuality and take it off when you don't need it is the skill. It's not that like, oh, now you're permanently never going to have a self, or like be Parker, or be DJ, or be Carl. No, but you can put on being Carl for practical purposes and then take it off when you don't need it. And then you realize that most of your life you don't need it. You only need it at small moments throughout the day. I only need to be Scott when I need to do something. And then like for most people's lives are spent not doing anything. And that's where if you're not occupied with something, the untrained mind begins to ruminate, begins to project, begins to bring stuff up from the past for no good reason, for no practical purpose. Like I need to bring up myself and bring up the future if I need to drive somewhere to get to work, or fix my car, like go to the grocery store. In that moment I need to do it. It's when I need to use it.
That's the funny thing about flow states, though, is like when you're so engrossed in what you're doing and you have skill at it and it's matched and all that, the self-referencing just drops away because it's not even necessary for doing a task, like the self-referencing. It's so interesting that that self-referencing drops away when it's not needed. But I guess there's a difference between knowing about that and like, because I'm a music teacher. I have music students that get into flow states when they're playing, and they might not be aware. They can kind of report like there was no self in that experience, but they're not aware that experience could just happen, outside of the guitar practice or outside of whatever practice.
Right. So it's a natural experience. It's not. It's not like a foreign meditative attainment. Like we all have been engrossed completely into either playing a music or washing the dishes or what.
Which is, I think, a good point, because I think sometimes, in whether in like magical spiritual traditions or even like Western Dharma that's more like pragmatic, but they still make those states of mind into these like elusive things that you have to chase, rather than it just being more of a mundane thing that can happen. Not mundane in terms of like not enjoying it, but just mundane in terms of like this can just happen. It doesn't have to be like a shooting star.
Right. It's a realistic, natural experience.
Yeah, it's a normal thing to happen to people.
It's not some sort of like unattainable thing. Like, that's the problem with most Buddhism, is they like deify the Buddha as some sort of unattainable thing, instead of realizing that the real teaching.
The master started saying like kill the Buddha or kill action, which I think is
in the road, kill him.
Yeah.
Because the real teaching of the Buddha is come and see for yourself, not make a religion out of me. No, here's what to do, and come and see the fruit of it for yourself. And it's surprisingly repeatable, and it's very doable. And that's the important part of any beginner meditators, is developing the attitude after some success. I can actually do this. Like, this is something I can realistically do. And that confidence is like a self-efficacy that pulls you out of the destructive capacity of the mind to create a self that's like not good enough, and or create a self that needs to be defended or aggrandized, and like needs to be better than other people and needs to compete. And then all that junk just actually ends up making you miserable, instead of just realizing like the simplicity of the practice and doing it over and over and over and over again, and then realizing that it's so simple that you just need to keep doing it, and the results speak for themselves. Like, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Like the proof of jhana is in the experience of jhana. It's not something you read about. It's not something you need to believe. It's like an actual experience. It's like, and then people make it some sort of magical belief system, all of these teachings, and then they're never going to be able to experience it. They're going to be a Buddhist for the rest of their lives. They'll never be a Buddha.
Yeah, that in fact the Buddha, all he was just a homeless person that learned how to talk himself into feeling good. And learned how to teach it very well. And we make it into some supernatural figure But really, he just had great circumstances and learned how to talk himself into feeling good and taught that to other people. But it became a religion when the people that were learning it brought their magical beliefs in and didn't let go of them, of rebirths and reincarnations and karmas and kamas and whatever it is. And Dhammarato always cites the time of Ashoka or Asoka. He was a king in the 300th century BCE, where essentially he endorsed Buddhism and allowed anyone to become a monk. And the product of that was a whole lot of people becoming monks, not enough teachers to teach them the actual teachings. So there was a lot of magical thinking. And then eventually the people who joined, who were of magical thinking, who didn't have a teacher to teach them, eventually became teachers, and they started teaching that magical stuff to their students. And then it became not homeless people just being happy and satisfied and being lazy, but a religion, but Buddhism.
Yeah, and the cool thing is like a bunch of supernatural, quote unquote supernatural stuff can happen on the path. You can have mystical experiences, and you can have all these, I don't know, maybe like some past life experiences, some like weird like stuff, maybe like some Kundalini awakenings, or like other sort of like I don't know, magical powers. Maybe like some people might experience like clairvoyance, like they could tell what's going to happen before it happens in like brief moments. But the important part is not all these like crazy things that you can experience. The important part is the satisfaction. Because like chasing after these sorts of things is just like anything, chasing after and wanting anything else, like money, sex, sensual pleasures. Ultimately, even if you get it, it's not going to make you happy. So the point of emphasis in this Sangha and with Dhammarato is coming into satisfaction, which is, there's nothing magical about it. There's nothing like extraordinary about it. And if extraordinary stuff happens, then great, you can be satisfied with that too, and not cling on to it.
Yeah, that's
and
what I found
create...
from watching like Dhammarato's talks and just some of the talks on the Sangha. What you said seems like is what is focused on the satisfaction and the dukkha, because a lot of the Western like pragmatic Dharma movement is really like hell bent on the, you know, some kind of no self awakening. Like you gotta refine through meditation enough to see no self, and then that's going to cause like a flip that will make you satisfied, rather than training the satisfaction itself.
Right.
And still, you know, still exploring the other teachings that are there in Buddhism, the no self and impermanence. But yeah, the Western tradition seems to put like almost like a bullseye on the no self part of it, and leaves a lot of the other stuff aside, like what we're talking about, like the Sangha, the satisfaction, and the friendliness. You know, just the cultivation of that.
Yeah, the whole path can be summed up into the one word: friendship.
There's this I go to the gym every day, and there's this guy that goes there. He's actually my old Taekwondo teacher, which is just like a mind like mess, because like I hadn't seen him in like 20 years, and then I started going to the gym and I started seeing him again. But it's funny, you know, I've been watching him over the past like 6 months at this gym. He's like the friendliest guy in the world. Everyone that he knows, everyone in the gym, everyone, like he's basically there just to make friends with people and like, you know, fist pump them every time someone walks in. And like, you know, just watching Dhammarato's talks, I was like, this guy's really doing it, you know, like he's trying to like have a good time, and it like changes the gym, like totally changes.
Yeah.
Like when he's in there, the vibe of the gym is like next level, and you know, it's just so friendly and peaceful. Like you walk in there and you feel more secure, just like you can't even control it. You're just like, this guy, he's gonna come up and like make me smile. Like I can't even stop this shit.
Yeah, like that's the Dhamma. Like that's what it means to practice the Dhamma.
Yeah,
like, that's it. Like it's real. It's life. It's like real life. It's real life. Like it's real life being happy. It's real life being satisfied. It's real life keeping track of how many times you get angry, how many times you get butthurt at things that happen, and like that's where the real practice is it when you experience life, and then experiencing it while being satisfied more and more, and then honestly reflecting and looking on yourself. Okay, bye DJ. Honestly reflecting, looking at yourself. Oh, I was getting angry in this situation. I was reacting, and not judging yourself for that, but like seeing it, and then making an effort to change it, and then you can see how good, like how important the path is in every aspect of your life, in your relationships, at the gym, anywhere, because that's what life is about. Life is about the happiness of the moment, and enjoying other people, and having authentic interactions, and the beauty of that. And then if we just stop getting in our own way and stop spreading our mental proliferation and bullshit around everything, realize like you think life is good. Like there's beauty everywhere, and like it's all good, and there's nothing to worry about. And so instead of constructing all these problems that aren't there, just to breathe, just to be in this moment, just to be in your senses. And then when you need to think, you think, and when you need to process, you process, and it all just happens on its own, and the grass grows by itself. All right, fellas. Well, I think I need to start getting ready for work. It was a pleasure talking with y'all.
It's been really great, guys.
Yeah, welcome aboard, man. It's good seeing you.
Yeah, we'll see you again.
Yeah, it's welcome. It was good to see you. See you guys.
Yeah, you guys have a good day.
Yes, have a good one.
Take care.